Welcome to World Travel Made Easy with Itinerary Boss, the podcast for busy professionals, entrepreneurs, and business owners who want to travel smarter, save money, and plan unforgettable trips without the stress. I'm Ross, your host and the founder of Itinerary Boss. I spent a decade building a career in healthcare, software, and medical device sales while planning both personal and business trips across more than 20 countries. Whether it was group getaways with friends, couples trips, or just mapping out business territories, I became the go-to person for saving money on flights, organizing those logistics, and using points to elevate the experience. Now, as an entrepreneur and business owner, I help others do the same by showing you how to travel better using points, smart planning, and those proven strategies. Each week, we bring you expert guests, step-by-step tutorials on points and miles, and real-world itineraries that we've used to help you plan with confidence. Whether it's using points to travel better, exploring a new destination, or just learning how to maximize your spending, we've got you covered. Before we dive in, go ahead and grab one of our free tools in the show notes. One, the points and miles cheat sheet that'll help you get started earning and redeeming points to save thousands on travel, or the stress-free travel toolkit that includes a budget guide, packing checklist, and planning tips to save you time and hassle. If you're a business owner, entrepreneur, or busy professional looking to choose your next credit card or get help maximizing your everyday spending for rewards and booking free travel, book a free one-on-one consultation. You can find the link within the show notes or head over to itineraryboss.com. And if this episode helps you, please share it with a friend or family member, follow the show, and leave a 5-star review. It's the best way that helps us grow. Now, let's get into today's episode. Welcome back to another episode of World Travel Made Easy. Excited to have you here this week. If you're new to the show, make sure you give us a follow or subscribe. That way you don't miss up on any upcoming episodes that we release 2 to 3 times a week, every Tuesday, Wednesday, and Thursday. And for this week's episode, we're going to be diving into what are the best way to redeem your credit card points. The reason we want to dive into this is we hear from so many friends, business owners that we work with. Hey Ross, I'm earning all these points, but I don't know what to do with them. A lot of the times they are, or hey, I'm redeeming them really, I know what I'm doing. I'm redeeming them really well. I'm booking, everything through the portal, all my flights, or hey, I just redeem them for statement credits, and I'm getting maximum value, or I'm redeeming them for gift cards, things like that. So that's one misconception and challenge that we want to peel back the onion on, because when you redeem that way, you're getting about 1 times the points. Sometimes through some portals you can get a little bit more, but to get maximum value, and if you're listening to this podcast, you're probably wanting to learn, hey, what are best practices and how do I maximize my points? So that's where the real value of transfer partners happens, right? And if you don't know what those are at all, I would suggest going back a few episodes to Transfer Partners 101. And then from there, you also can look into the transfer bonuses, because that makes it then that helps you understand, hey, this is once I know the transfer partners, if I want to get even better offers and maximize my points, transfer bonuses are really important. So I would suggest going back, checking out those quick 10, 15 minute episodes. But for here, we're going to dive more into the details of some of the transfer partners, right? What do we suggest? What are some of the airline alliance partners? What are some examples of wins that we've had this year and next year? And then what are some simple routes that you can get from some of the main airports, whether you're, coming from the East Coast, Mid-Atlantic, or Midwest, West Coast, and also what are some aspirational different trips. So let's go ahead and dive in. So for transfer partners, when you have the biggest thing that I always recommend for my clients and friends is always asking, do you have transferable points? I think that's step one. So understanding, and if you go back through any of our credit card specific episodes, I talk about this. But you're going to want to know, do I have any points that can transfer, whether that's from any of the big banks like Capital One, American Express, Chase, Citi. So that's step one. Then you want to understand too, okay, who are some of the transfer partners that I can utilize these points with? So some of those, if you're thinking of ultimate rewards, they could be places like United, Hyatt, any of the Avios programs, which you're probably most familiar with British Airways, Qatar. We like to use Qantas a lot, which is if since we're an American hub here in Charlotte. You also have Air Canada, which is honestly one of the best programs because just from a availability standpoint, routes that they do, you also can add in a stopover, which we'll do a deeper dive into on an upcoming episode for 5,000 points. And then also there's Virgin Atlantic, which has some really good sweet spots if you're going from New York over to London for under 30,000 points. Sometimes in business, as well as 6,000 points in economy. So great for families if you're just wanting to figure out how do I get over to Europe, and then from there you can go along your route. Also, then you have American Express, which they transfer over to Delta, which we suggest, using those for Air France or KLM Flying Blue. That's where you're gonna get more of your sweet spots for them. Virgin Atlantic, ANA, Singapore, and they also transfer over to Hilton and Marriott. We personally suggest not doing that unless you need to. But a lot of the times when people ask us, "Hey, I, I had these points and I transferred them to Hilton or Marriott, and I didn't know if I got the best redemption." For us, we like to keep those American Express points for business class flights to where you're going. We like to keep our Ultimate Rewards points. Sometimes if we have a lot of those and we have a diverse group of points, we like to use Ultimate Rewards for Hyatt properties, and we look at those, as Hyatt properties. But the nice part is when you have, different flexible points currencies, you can combine those and if they have some of the same partners and transfer those over. So those are some strategies that we've done. For example, also with like Capital One, you can transfer over to the Avios programs. You also can transfer over your Ultimate Rewards. So combining those two can get you a real nice redemption on places like Qatar if you're trying to fly one of the best business classes over to the Middle East. You then have Capital One. They transfer over to Turkish, Avianca, Singapore, Aeroplan, Air Canada. So those are some of the main ones, which is nice because again, when you go back and you say, hey, what are some of the flexible currencies? If I have different ones for maybe a business and then a personal card, how do I combine some of those points? That's good. And then you also have Citi, which now can transfer over to American, which is from some of the specific cards. If you have the Costco card, you can't transfer those over. Those are just cash back. I wish. Hey, I wanted to take a quick break to say thank you so much for tuning into the show. The only way the show grows is through listeners like you helping us share it. So if you're enjoying the show, it'd mean the world to me if you hit that 5-star rating, shared it with a friend or family member who's ready to travel more, save money, or just needs a little bit more inspiration and that nudge. And if you're posting about it on Instagram, go ahead and tag Itinerary Boss, and we'll make sure to reshare it and shout you out for giving us a shout out. Thanks so much for the support. It truly means a lot. And now back with the show. I would be all over that since we spend a ton of money at Costco, and we get that question a lot. But you can transfer those over. Turkish is a good one if you're trying to fly. If you're looking and you want to fly on like a United operated flight, check that out. So those are the main ones for credit cards. Who do they transfer to? If you want to see this, just if you're a visual person, we have a free points and miles cheat sheet that you can grab in the show notes where it will show you, 4 simple steps to get started. And then from there, there's actually a link out to all the different transfer partners. So you have that cheat sheet for when you start to look at, hey, Ross, I live here and I have these points. This is who I want to potentially fly. That's a good just visual that you can have up on one screen when you start to go through and look to book some flights. So those are some of the transfer partners. Hotel wise, my suggestion is just Hyatt from your Ultimate Rewards. That is definitely the one where we use most of our points. We do have a guest coming up who will be talking about some other strategies outside of some of the big 4 or 5 around Marriott, Hilton, IHG, Hyatt, where there are some boutique hotels we can start to earn some loyalty points. So excited to share that. And for yeah, but if you're looking to stay at Hilton or Marriott, when they have some of those transfer bonuses, if you're a business owner and you have a ton of points and you're spending, a couple $100,000 on your business card and you're earning millions of points, that's a little bit of a different story. But if you are, if you're just earning daily, sometimes, if you're taking one big trip and you know how to play the game, you can use those for hotels. But if you're just getting started out, to keep it simple, leveraging your transferable points besides Ultimate Rewards to Hyatt for your flights is going to be the best bang for your buck and how you're going to get 3 to 5+ times value. So then you think of, okay, well, there's all these different airlines. What are the airline alliance partners? And we'll do deeper dives into each of these and best practices, but just at a high level, when you're thinking through, how do we transfer these points to these airlines that you just mentioned, like this, it may sound like a foreign language. So to keep it simple, your airline alliance partners, think of Star Alliance. You can add that to, you can pair that with United. Think of One World with as American, and you have Avios program, and then think of SkyTeam as Delta, and you have Delta Sky Miles. The thing is you're gonna for SkyTeam, you're probably if you're getting into this game, you're probably not going to want to book many Delta flights. There's better award availability on some of their partners like Air France, KLM, as well as there are some Virgin. So that's one. For One World, think of right American Airlines. So if you're at an American Airlines hub like we are in Charlotte, we use Avios all the time. We use British Airways. We also use Qantas as part of One World. You also have, Qatar, and some others like Finnair, Aer Lingus, Iberia, which we'll get into, and we'll do a deeper dive into that. So, we want to start with small steps. And we're going to give a few personal examples to make it a little bit more simple. And then for Star Alliance, you have United, Air Canada, Lufthansa, Singapore, SAS, Turkish. So just thinking of, okay, once you get into the alliance, you're not always going to be booking on these main flights. So I think that's on the main hubs that I just mentioned. And I think that's one of the biggest misconceptions, one of the biggest things that you have to get over is you can't be afraid to book on some of these other airlines because at the same time, they are operating a lot of the times, like British Airways, Qantas, those on American operated flights. So those are the things just to think of, hey, I might be flying on that specific airline, but it's, I might be flying, I might be booking through that specific airline, but I'm actually flying on an operated flight that I'm used to. So that's just to keep it simple, right? If you do have some of that nervousness, hesitancy, that's my suggestion is just keeping it simple, like that. And we'll dive into, and you're probably now thinking, okay, well, which one is, what's good, what's bad, what are the things to look out for? The best part is we're going to do deeper dives into these specific alliances. We're going to do deeper dives into these specific airline programs, what to look out for, what not to do, what we really like. And we'll do a deeper dive into those. But for now, just wanting to get you started and understanding, because these are a lot of the questions we get. That's what we want to focus in on. So just a couple example routes, and I'm going to do this just from my personal experience here being in Charlotte, right, an American hub, just so you can kind of see the power of transfer partners, alliances to get your mind working. So domestically, we're going to start out with simple redemptions. So domestically, we have an upcoming trip to Jacksonville. I don't have a ton of American points right now. I used a lot of them. So, and as I continue to build that up and decide where to maximize those, domestically, we're going to Jacksonville. So round trip, I have I have a ton of Capital One miles that we earn 2 times the points from a lot of our daily spend and from a lot of wedding expenses. So I actually was able to book via Qantas. So what I did is, I went and signed up for their loyalty program. It's free and I transferred over 15,000 Capital One miles to Qantas, which saved me $400. So that's a pretty good redemption. That's over 2 times, the points there. The nice part is they actually had a transfer bonus going on at 30%. So I actually ended up only having to pay 12,000 points for this trip. So that is actually like 3.5 times the points on that. And I knew, right, I knew that there was going to be, I knew I had these different flights that I had coming up. So what I did is there's a guy named Greg, the frequent miler, that you should definitely check out. He actually has on his website each time that transfer bonuses have happened over the past 5 years, which is great because you can say, okay, I can potentially forecast that there's going to be five Capital One to Qantas, and I'm not saying there are five, but right, there could be five. Here's kind of the times they've come out. I'm going to have all the flights that I'm looking at, knowing, what the availability is, what the times are if they align. And I'm gonna, when that does happen, and if there's still availability, I'm gonna transfer those points over and maximize those. One thing is don't transfer those over prior because say you were to transfer those over to Qantas and then you're waiting for that transfer bonus and 3 months come down, or well, you probably wouldn't, but say you were before, and then you're saying, okay, I'm waiting for this 30% because I think I can get 30% off the flight. Your miles are stuck there and there might not be availability. So my suggestion is always wait until, if you are waiting for a transfer bonus, to transfer those points over. That way you get that, but you also want to make sure there is availability because once you send those over, you can't bring those back. So that's a quick domestic one. Also, Charlotte to Vegas. We had one leg where I didn't have enough American miles to book that one leg, so I did two one ways. The one way there was $360 and it was 18,000 Qantas points. So I ended up booking that. And I used that 30% transfer bonus. So it ended up being 15,000 $360. So those are two simple ones. There was also one going to Lexington, Kentucky, which was about 20 some Qantas miles. I had enough Americans, so I ended up booking that to save about 460 bucks. When you then start to go over to the Mexico, the Caribbean, right now we're going a little bit international. And these are right, there's going to be sweet spots from different areas. What I want to do is show you what's possible with American, One World Alliance, the different alliances. So Charlotte to Grand Cayman, British Airways is part of the One World Alliance. So I sent over 26,000 points. There was a 30% transfer bonus from, I think it was Ultimate Rewards to British Airways. I took advantage of that. It was a $640 flight. So ended up getting, almost, it was around, yeah, 2.5 times those points. And then Charlotte to Cabo, had enough to fly down. So did two one ways. One was 10,000 points to get from Charlotte to there direct. And then one way back was on Qantas at the American flight was about 17.5. And I value American points are harder to earn and I value those more. So I had more Capital One miles that I sent over 18,000 Avios and it was about a $437 one-way flight. So you can see, and I sent those Avios, those Capital One miles to to Qantas, which was able to help that. So that's where you can see where if you have those transferable currencies, if you don't have a ton of American Airlines miles, and if you're wanting to learn how to earn some of those, we actually have a great episode with DeAndre Koch where he dives into all the best ways to earn American Airlines miles from some more strategies. So check that out. If and that's on that actually came out in late August, so August 27th. But if you're wanting to look at it, if you're like, okay, cool, this sounds great. Like, what are some? I have a lot of American miles, or I have a lot of, Capital One, Ultimate Rewards, those types that I want to transfer over to some of these, like British Airways, Qantas. American Airlines has, in some of these programs, so they have great award availability to places like Turks and Caicos, Grand Cayman, Bahamas. So easy to get to, but also, right, there's others in the Caribbean you can look for some of those off-peak dates. If you want to fly in on a Friday and out on a Sunday, you're probably not going to find the best award availability. But if you have flexibility to fly in on a Thursday, home on a Monday, Tuesday, or Friday to Tuesday. That's where you find a lot of the sweet spots. And obviously it's not during, the big holidays. So flexibility is key. So those are just some routes that we've done that you can leverage the airline alliance partners. If you're wanting to do so, then thinking through, okay, how do you then go on some of these more long haul flights? So, just I'll use my personal example. When we went to Bangkok, we were able to use our Capital One and Ultimate Rewards to transfer over to British Airways, which is part of that One World Alliance. 100,000 points, which One World Alliance, when we dive deeper into, Qatar Q Suites is also a part of that. You can link those two accounts. So you can send those miles over, you have those accounts linked, you can then book right through British Airways because they also have Qatar as one of their partners. Or if you wanted to send them to Qatar, you could send them to British Airways and then to Qatar. That's the best way. But that's where we were able to send 100,000 points over and get a $5,600 business class seat on the best business class, which is ultimately almost first class on Qatar. So for 200,000 points, you're able to get over $11,000 in savings. So that's, over five, almost six times our points value. So those are the type of, aspirational redemptions when you start to use some of these airline alliance partners, understanding what they do. That's personal examples, a couple international, just simple redemptions. You have, Flying Blue from JFK has a lot of good options. And if you go back, if you're part of a Delta hub, looking at different Flying Blue, Virgin, those are ones that are going to get you over there. And if you listen to some of our former episodes, we talk about, if you don't have a ton of points where you're a business owner who's spending a ton, you have, millions of points where you're like, I don't care about, if it's more expensive. I just want to get there direct or in the easiest way. Um, if you are trying to maximize your point value and save some of those, you can use a tool called Flight Connections that will map out, hey, what flights get direct to this location. If you're getting, the biggest thing is getting over to where your destination. If there are airports that are easy to find more award availability, you're not going to be trying to fly into just a island that doesn't, right, somewhere in Italy or Spain that doesn't have direct flights. Like, don't search that. You're going to be searching some of these bigger hubs, and then you can, book that flight from there. So that's my recommendation because you're going to get a bigger bang for your buck. But if you do, Flying Blue is a good one. You can do JFK or Atlanta to Paris for 15 to 25K, off peak. Iberia, East Coast to Madrid. So they have a bunch that go, which Iberia is part of One World. You can do in economy, I think it's 17K Avios, and then you can find business class for 34,000, which is, nothing. And then British Airways, you can get over to a lot of those different destinations using Avios. And if you wanted to do uh, like somewhere like Dublin, I know a lot of people ask about Ireland. There's flights on Aer Lingus, British Airways, and a couple aspirational redemptions. If you're going to Japan, you can do ANA. They also have Japan Airlines, which we'll dive into more of these. We have a couple clients who are wanting to do that. And then you also could get to Europe on Turkish with Capital One or City Miles. So just a couple hubs to keep in mind, and this is how, you can kind of simplify it and start to think through it. Obviously, Charlotte is a one world, right? That's, we're American hub. So thinking through that, we're going to have a lot of availability there. Atlanta is, you have Delta, you have your Sky Team. JFK has Delta, but it's, Flying Blue, Virgin are going to be very important. Dulles, you have United. So you have your Star Alliance, and then Boston's going to be your other big one. And then you have Chicago, which you're going to have United American. So things through that. United and Chicago has a ton of direct flights to a lot of places, so that could be a good place to fly into and then fly out of. You then have Dallas, which is going to be another big American hub. So thinking through that for Avios, and then Houston, which is going to be your United. So thinking through, where can you go with some of those? And then you have your West Coast. You have your Los Angeles. You have your San Francisco, which is going to be your United. Seattle, which is going to be your Delta. And LA is going to be your American. But thinking through, what are some of those? And the nice part about the West Coast is you can get over to places in Asia on direct flights. So that is something to think through. But hopefully this is helpful. We wanted to make sure, right, that we shared as much value as possible and that we're answering your questions just based off of, how do I redeem my credit card points? And if you go back to mistakes not to make, that's a great episode that we dive into. Here's what we recommend not to do, right? Here and then you can dive into transfer bonus 101, transfer partners 101, the impact of transfer bonuses. And then this is a good way to, right, understand, hey, how do I now maximize those points? And we're going to start to, and if you listen to our expert guest interviews, those are more the breakdowns of, hey, this is what I did. Here's some trips. It'll give you some inspiration and like behind the scenes of how other people think and what's possible with families. And then we're going to continue just to do more simple breakdowns of the alliance, hotels, trip specifics, destinations, how to get there on points. So my suggestion is make sure you follow, subscribe, and that way you don't miss out on any of these upcoming episodes. And you just each week you have this flow to you. You can listen in your car, you can listen when you're running, when you're working out, taking a walk, and right, you get to just learn on the go. That's one of our favorite things to do. So appreciate everyone tuning in. If you want to share this with a family or friend who wants to travel more, save some money, make sure you do. That helps us grow the show. And if you want to give us a 5-star review, that also helps us grow the show, keep this going, and continue to provide value to you. Appreciate everyone tuning in, and we will see you next week.